The Lazarus Serum. By Matt McBride.
This is a recording of the farewell speech given to the 20th International Congress of Second Lifers by the outgoing chairman, Zander P Stanton, on December 30, 2089.
As you all know, I'm a very old man. Now that I'm approaching the 100th year of my second life, I feel it is time for me to step down as chairman of this illustrious organization. But, before I do, I would like to remind the more recently revitalized among us of our turbulent history and how we came to dominate the world. When I was a boy, entities like ourselves were few in number. We were regarded by most people as nothing but myth and legend. We were the subjects of fantastical children's stories and Hollywood horror movies. We were referred to in the most derogatory of terms. The undead, the living dead, night walkers, and, worst of all, the dreaded Z word. A word, thankfully, that is no longer permitted. But then came the advent of new life-promoting drugs, and even more significantly, the Lazarus Serum, an elixir that could resurrect the recently departed. The new serum led to a huge increase in the number of the undead, who we now refer to as second lifers. However, at that time, the undead were mercilessly persecuted. They were vilified by the living, who regarded them as monsters. It is still true that the Lazarus Serum cannot reverse brain damage. So, those among us who are not resurrected immediately after death remain somewhat intellectually challenged and often physically impaired. And, mainly because of this, the bigotry enacted against our kind prior to the planetary war was inhumane. Second lifers were expected to carry out every menial, mindless, or perilous task without question. It was considered that their second lives were less valuable than a first life. As a consequence, our antecedents suffered greatly, and this naturally fomented unrest and friction between the two categories of humanity. And, I have to admit to you all, that, before my own resurrection, I was guilty of the same arrogance. I believe my quickness of thought and reactions set me above the ponderous second life creatures I saw all around me. But even that quickness wasn't enough to save me from the undead dopehead who stabbed me during a ruckus in a sleazy bar in Amsterdam. So, still a young man, I became a second lifer, and, thanks to the rapid response of the medical services, I was revived with all my faculties intact. But, this wasn't enough to prevent the discrimination I experienced. Like my fellows, I was expected to perform the most demeaning activities imaginable. It was because of that oppression that I founded the movement for the empowerment of the reborn, and devoted my second life to improving conditions for the resurrected. With hard work and the divine help of Lazarus, our patron saint, our numbers grew, and we became a force to be reckoned with. But it was not until the planetary war that our situation really changed. Because the first lifers, for all their quick wits, also had quick tempers, and when war broke out, it soon spread to all parts of the world. The death toll was horrendous. Weapons of mass destruction destroyed entire cities. Bodies piled up in the streets. But, of course, each casualty of the war was an additional recruit to our cause. Because our members moved among the corpses, administering the Lazarus Serum to those that were not too badly damaged. When the war had finally played itself out, our numbers had increased exponentially. We outnumbered the first lifers by 3 to 1. At last, our time had come. We had the upper hand. And so it has remained for the last 20 years. The tables have turned, and it is now the newly born who carry out the menial tasks, and suffer for the duration of their pathetic first lives. They serve and worship us, in the knowledge that, one day, they will die and, on their day of judgment, we will decide whether they are worthy to join us. And that is how it should be. Because are we not the chosen elite? Was not Jesus Christ himself resurrected as a second lifer after his crucifixion, just like ourselves? And so, my people, I leave you in the knowledge that I have played a part in the creation of a new world. A world where the age-old questions of life after death, and the existence of heaven and hell have been answered. For, while the first lifers live in their hell, are we not already living the afterlife, in a heaven, of our own creation?